You are listening to the Starter Girls podcast with Jennifer Loading, where extraordinary decisions produce extraordinary results. These are my friends, these are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Photographer of Glad Models Agency. If you are in the Dallas or surrounding area and looking for some photography work, check out Walt Mills. You can learn more about him at photosbywalt.com. All right, guys, you know the drill. Today is a great day to be brave. You might as well start now. You have the power to change your circumstances any day you decide. Let today be that day. Rise up, be amazing, be you, do you. All right, I am super excited to welcome my guest, Mantha Mantha, to the studio. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi, Jennifer.
All right, I'm going to tell my listeners a little bit about you so they know who I'm talking to on the other end. All right, friends, Melissa has been in the entertainment industry for over the past 15 years. Upon receiving her degree in dance and in accounting, she became a professional dancer and pursued various professional experiences. And throughout her journey, she's always emphasized one thing: music and its role in successful events. As an assistant position with the Air London agency, followed by her work with clandestine artists, inspired Melissa to fulfill her lifelong dream by founding her booking and event management agency, Armige, in 2017. Armige now represents world-class talent in North and South America, including over 30 established and up-and-coming artists. Melissa utilizes strong relationships around the world to build tours that include top-tier venues and festivals. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you.
Awesome. We're super excited to have you here. So that's the important part. Like, I have to get all that out. Now we can relax and have fun, right?
Sounds great.
All right. So I want to start off really quick because I know you and I talked off of camera, which is fun. I always like to talk off so I can get a little background behind my guests and find out what they're doing and where they came from. So what I want to do first of all, because I am not even familiar with this industry at all. I don't come from that side, and I know a lot of my listeners do not as well. So tell us a little bit about what your agency does and who are your clients that you're serving.
Sure. So I very specifically work within the underground electronic music industry, which primarily focuses with house and techno music in various forms. So that's a very specific niche. The mainstream world more knows about EDM, electronic dance music, and we kind of operate in a very specific realm outside of that. So my clients are my artists. They're all DJ producers. A lot of them came from the days where you used to have to play vinyl, so they know how to mix two records versus taking either a flash drive, little stick, and putting it in, or even a lot of more mainstream DJs will put a preset playlist on their computer and just hit play nowadays and then stand and put their hands in the air.
Yeah.
So I try to focus on the guys with an actual skill set who understand how music is created and works together. One of the things that made me fall in love with this music is that you never know what you're going to hear. Even if you have an artist that plays two songs that you may know, which is a very rare occurrence altogether, but they'll mix it together in a way that you've never heard before. So it's just something that's very unique. It's inspirational in that capacity because it's always brand new. So the artists, a lot of them are European, but many are focused here in the US as well. And then I'll organize their tours around North and South America with promoters of festivals, of venues, of sometimes fashion shows. So it's very eclectic in the type of event that they will play.
That's so awesome. No, and I think the thing that's neat about that is the part, I think the thing that's sticking out to me is the part where you said the songs are not the same. So nothing's really ever identically the same, right? That's the creativity of it. But yeah, that's so neat because I guess it will keep it fresh all the time because you're not going to have the same thing going on all the time. I think that's what's so fun about art though, is that it's very difficult to always recreate the same thing. It's never the same. You know what I mean? So I think that's awesome. And I know you mentioned when we were offset that this is a heavily male dominated industry. So you're kind of a unicorn in this field, which I think is really Amazing. And so I guess what I want to ask you, because you came from obviously dancing and you have an accounting background. I just went to lunch with somebody, and it's so funny because this was a gal that was on my show before that studied accounting, became a CPA, went and worked at a Fortune 500 company, and then decides while she's there making great money that she's like, my day has to feel good inside and out, right? And so she decided to go and buy a franchise, and now she's an agent. And so it's so funny. We were talking about this today. How many people come on this show that have like accounting in their background, So it tells me a lot of smart people get on this show because we got a lot of accounting backgrounds. So, but I want to ask you, because you did have that dancing background. And so obviously music's been a part of your life and dance has been a part of your life. But what was the thing that, like, how did you end up in this? How did this come about for you?
So at 22, I had an internship when I moved to New York City. And that lasted a very short period of time, just because at that moment I didn't possess the self-confidence. You need a lot of street smarts to operate within this industry as well, I would say. So that kind of got put on the back burner, and I bumbled around a bit with different entities and office management jobs, and I bartended in a nightclub for a few years. I also ended up with an amazing experience with an experiential marketing company, and they have sent me all over the U.S. to work for different sponsorship activations, whether it be in conjunction with Art Basel or South by Southwest or Coachella events or Lollapalooza I've gone to as well. So that actually gave me a lot of the skill set that is required to run my agency and deal with all the different personalities of the music industry. When I had to give up dancing for a back injury, I knew that I wanted to help facilitate other people's passions. And with that accounting degree, I have a very organized mathematical way of operating. So as a performer, I can understand the creative side of things, but I also have that operational management side as well, which I think that no artist wants to think about booking their flights or making sure that their tech rider is met, or making sure that the driver is there. So there will always be a necessity for an agent/manager for these people that are touring. And even knowing, because I did start as an assistant, but knew that I wanted to be in charge. So it was a curious way that my transition happened, because I took an assistant position, and the woman that I was training under, I was fortunate enough to train under a very strong female. She ended up quitting the industry within a few months, and I inherited this amazing roster of artists right away. So I ended up going to work for another agency for a while, and then it was a mutual decision that we should separate because we had different ways of operating. It's a fine line to operate professionally without being a quote unquote bitch. It's difficult to garner the respect very often as a female when you're dealing with men all the time, even down to showing up at the nightclub in conjunction, like next to my artist, and the promoter doesn't know that I'm coming or know what I look like, and your girlfriend came with you. That's normally the automatic response, or something of that nature. They don't necessarily assume that you're there professionally, which is an interesting hurdle to constantly try and overcome.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. I think this is so good. And you touched upon so many things. I think something in there that's really good too is the part where you had that passion to help other artists, because I think so much of what we do, and that's really what this podcast is about for me, is just really displaying that the fact that you make these different decisions to be able to do these things in your life that you feel like are callings and passions, and having those moments. Some people have these defining moments where they really realize this is the moment where I need to move into something else. But most people, it's this gradual progression of opportunities that cross our path as we're going along the journey. And so I love that. And what an opportunity to be able to go into that agency and be able to kind of work navigate that, and then be able to walk out and have some experience. And I can totally understand the part of having to navigate, not that I'm in that industry, but having to navigate, and hold your own. So it looks like you're certainly, and it sounds like you're certainly doing well. So I congratulate you on that part. So What is I guess, what is the best part about this for you? What do you love the most about this industry?
There are so many. First and foremost, probably the travel that I do get to do. It's very beneficial to go and meet the people that you're working with face to face. And since I work with people all over the world, it means that I get to travel all over the world. I've been fortunate enough to go to Peru and Ecuador and Guatemala and Ibiza and Portugal and Berlin. And so the list kind of continuously evolves and goes on in that aspect. But the music at the end of the day is, and just playing a part. I'm not creating the event or throwing the event or performing at it, but just playing a part and giving people that experience that really does truly give them hope and can change lives in moments in time. The friendships that are created at a music event are quite profound, and the friendships that I've created with the people that I've met over the years are also really appreciated and wonderful.
You're like selling me on this, Melissa. I don't even do this. You're like selling me on it. Like I'm hearing friends. This sounds like amazing. What, and travel? Right.
Well, I'll have to get you out to a show once this COVID-19 chapter has passed.
Oh, I'm all for it. You'll have to totally let me know. I'm going to be all for it. I'm like praying we're going to get out of this like one of these days so we can move forward and like get back to something, right? Get back to something in our lives. So amen. Chris is back here like cheering me on. Amen, right? No, I love it. It sounds incredible. And you know, just like what an amazing opportunity to be able to do what you love to do, because I think that's so important. And, you know, I was putting a clip up today that I had taken from another show. And one of the things we were talking about is that when you get to work from joy, you don't have to have anyone motivate that. Like you just wake up excited about that, you know, and that's some of the things, like that's the way I feel every day when I get to do the things that I love to do, because every day is different. I never know, you know, who I'm going to talk to that day, whose life's going to be changed, who's going to change mine. I don't really know those things, but what I know is every day something magical happens. And that's what I go with every day, is that I have the ability to create something like that and be able to do those things I want to do. So I think that's great. And I'm hoping, like I said, that we get somewhere, you know, move out of this so that you guys can get back into that industry and do those things that you love to do and be able to travel and do your art and all of that great stuff, because there are people that need it and want it, right?
Right, and there's a very specific energy that's created at those events that I don't think the streaming necessarily replicates. So it's really important for us to be in the same space and share the music.
I'm visioning this because I know, like, you know, when I was in network marketing for a really long time. I was a director in a company and a leadership in another company. And so I went to events, you know, 2 times a year, every single year. I've been, you know, probably like 40 of these events, and they were very powerful events. And we would always talk about that in these events, like there's nothing, you can't see this on screen and replicate what you're getting when you're actually at these events, because the energy is completely different. So not that I've been in that industry that you're in, but I can absolutely understand. I hear your dog back there. This is like my house.
I'm really sorry.
It's okay. Well, I don't know if it's a he or she, but whatever the gender of the dog, like wants to let us know that they're there.
She's actually a very important part of my life. So.
That's all right. What kind of dog is it?
She's a blue-nosed pit bull.
Oh, I have a pit bull. I haven't. Really? We haven't even gotten to the dog part of this podcast. I was going to ask you that question, but now we like connected on a whole nother level, because I have a pit bull too named Cece, and she's a brindle, and she's crazy, like super crazy. So I get what's going on at your house right now, because like I have to lock her up. This is why I come to the studio to do my podcast, because if I do anything at home, like I have to lock her in another room because she barks and wants to get in my lap and sit on the table and like, you know, do all the crazy.
They want to be the center of attention at all moments in time.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Awesome. All right. I want to talk about influencers really quick. Anybody in your life that you would, and it can be more than one, that you would say has just been an amazing influencer or just had an impact on you over the years in this industry?
There's a lot of them.
I'm sure.
I do, and because there's multiple roles that we work with, right? So I have Ryan Saltzman. He's a senior partner at the Bullet Booking Agency. They work with artists like Dubfire and many other established DJs. But he took me in. I was fortunate enough to meet him when I was 22 years old. and expressed my interest in someday becoming a booking agent. And once or twice a year, we would get on the phone with each other and, Ryan, what am I supposed to be paying attention to? How can, what steps can I be taking now to set up for my future? And he continually gave me advice. And even since I started the agency, he's always been there to continue on that with that friendship and in the way. So his sense of integrity and authenticity is unmatched in this industry. So I feel super fortunate that he was the one that in particular that trained me. So
that's awesome.
I'm so fortunate to have such a lovely roster of DJs that I work with. I very often will say I have the nicest roster in the industry. DJs can very often become rock stars and arrogant and not so nice, but it's very important for me to connect with the people that I work with on that level. I'm a boutique agency, so that's one of the elements that allows me to offer something different than, say, the big main industries, main agencies of the industry like CAA or Windish, or, there's big conglomerates that it's sometimes difficult to compete with in a proper capacity. So.
I would think it would be hard, though, not to be a friend with you, Melissa.
Thanks.
I think the relationships are important, and I agree with you 100%. You want to be working with great people, so I'm totally with you on that 100%. So I wanted to ask you, and I kind of mentioned this to you off the screen. This is my favorite part. I love to talk about mindset and success because I think this is so different for everybody. But the cool thing about it is when people listen to this is often a lot of the stuff they really listen in on because they want to know, especially coming from different people in different industries, because a lot of the core ideas are really similar, but they just angle them a little bit differently. So when you are going after something, and you can base this back, in your dancing career or even in what you're doing right now, I've heard so many really great things in here about mentors, and just I picked up on, you being a student of your craft, really wanting to know how to go about this and navigate it and get better at what you're doing. So when you're going after something, what does that mindset look like for you? What does that process look like?
Sure. I believe anything is possible with clarity. So it's sorting out the details and it's getting the specifics really focused in on and knowing what you want. It's not difficult to get what you want. It's difficult to know what you want. There's a good and a bad to so many circumstances, and things that we think we want, we then will sit back with it and be like, actually, no, maybe there's another side to that makes me not really want it. So I think that's the number one priority when I have to narrow down on the details and look at all sides of it to make sure that it is really what I want.
That's so good.
So another really cool thing that there's a parable that talks about good, bad, who knows? And just always trying to make sure there's going to be failures in your life, right? And if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
100%.
I love all these sayings. They keep me going every day. But so that's another element of it, is just finding inspiration wherever you can.
Yeah.
But there's a good in every bad, and a bad in every good.
Yeah, I love it. Are you a little bit of a dreamer?
Very much so.
I call
myself a cheese ball on a consistent basis. So.
Well, I can get it. I'm a dreamer too, so I can get it. I a lot of times people think I have my head in the clouds. I'm like, no, I don't have my head in the clouds. I just choose not to focus on the. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of boring if you just live on the, don't dream a little. It gets kind of boring. You get overwhelmed with all the real things going on in the world. When you dream, you don't have to worry about that, So I'm with you on that 100%. I think that creative gene, that we have. What's so interesting about that too, Melissa, is that I don't know about you, but for me, and I've talked about this so many times on my show about you, and you kind of just touched upon this, that clarity thing. You know how so many people, they get out of high school and they go to college to pursue a career because they think, okay, what are the standard careers? Accounting, right? Nursing, teacher, doctor. We go get these degrees because we think we want to do these because they sound like great paychecks, right? So then we go to school and we get them, and then we come out and we're like, these just kind of suck. This is just not our thing. So interestingly enough, One of the things I read something the other day, I took this quiz that talked about like different kinds of speakers, like whether you're a truth teller or a visionary. And there were two more. Well, mine came back visionary, which is basically means that I'm good at talking on the stage. Like that's where my gift is. I'm good at like that kind of stuff, right? And it came back and it would tell you like as a child, like how you were as this child. And I went back and I was thinking about this because I had a girl on my show a long time ago that came in and she said, your strengths always find you. Okay. So I was kind of laughing about this because I'm like, yeah. So when I was a little kid, I used to like make these like little clubs with kids. I'd be like, hey, we're going to create these little clubs and we're going to like figure out how we're going to make money and we're going to create these businesses. And like, we were like elementary school. And of course, many of my friends were like, why are we not like playing chase and Barbie dolls and house and school? And I'm like, no, that's boring. We got to be like creating these businesses. And so then, we go through this phase in life where we kind of like shelter sometimes some of that creativity. And I did that like for 20 something years. Like I put that on a back shelf. And so I went around for many years telling myself that I was like not creative. Like I'm like, I am not creative. Like I'm good at math and science. I'm a logical thinker. And I am. Don't get me wrong. I'm good at all that stuff. But earlier you touched upon something about having that side of you where you can do all that logical stuff. That is the very stuff that like I hate doing. Like I hate all of that because why? It takes away from my creative side. And I actually love the creative side. That's my favorite part is when I get to do all that other stuff and not have to plan. Like I'm like, I need
the planning. I love it. Not for myself though, ironically.
For other
I
people.
spend my life planning for everyone else and I'm not a planner when it comes to my
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Well, and I guess that's so true because I coach and I'm always good at coaching everybody else, So, but I hate like when it comes to strategizing. So earlier when you said the hardest part is figuring out what you want to do. And I get that 100% because when I coach a lot of times, a lot of people, that is the hardest part. They don't know what they really want to do, right? Mm-hmm. Mine is I know what I want to do and then I always get stuck on how to do it. So I get this big vision of where I'm going and then I'm like, okay, how am I going to get there? And then I'm like, oh, this is starting to get complicated now. I got to think too much. So that's where you're great. You have that great talent of being able to do the strategy part and get it organized. I love it. So
I was so fortunate as well because you mentioned college kids, they go to school and they just pick something.
Yeah.
80% of college students actually change their degree. I knew what I wanted to do. I was going to dance and I actually turned down a full academic scholarship to Fordham University so that I could go study dance.
Good for you.
Which was
yeah, wow.
An interesting decision in life, but at the end of the day, I'm where I'm meant to be. So
I love it. I love it. Well, I studied dance for a little bit. I took it when I was little, but I didn't do anything like you did. So you're amazing. I love it. I love it. So Melissa, in your own terms, you've said so many great things today. I think this is so good. You've said a lot of really powerful things. In your terms, in your words, how would you define success? What does that look like for you?
Waking up excited every day. It's not about finances because those will come if you follow your heart. Money will never give you happiness. So when you have the happiness, the money does come. Even amidst these crazy last 9 months with COVID, it's all worked out in some way, shape, or form. Just because I have that confidence that it will. I feel like we shape our realities. So that's how success can look to me.
That's so good. You just gave me chills. So I know you said something good. That was so good. I love it because that's exactly what it is for me. It's not about the money. It's about having that harmony in your life. It's that peace of just being happy and enjoying what you're doing. Because I think the same thing. I think the money comes when you enjoy what you're doing.
Eventually.
Yeah, eventually. I'm with you. It's not overnight. Let's not lie on this podcast and tell you it's coming tomorrow because that's not happening, but it will eventually, right? But no, it's so true because so many times people get so hung up on, especially if they need that income. And so when people are going into these new careers, they're like, should I quit what I'm doing and go into this new thing? And you're like, no, you still need to bring in some income. You need to eat. Okay. But I talk about flow a lot of times and the flow is what we're talking about right now. It's the doing the thing you love. It's the thing a lot lot of people can't do the thing they love full time yet because they're not there yet, or they're exploring and they're trying to figure out what is that thing I love. You went dance. You knew dance was going to be your thing. That led you, right? I didn't know that I was going to be doing any of this stuff I'm doing today. I mean, I swore in college, I took public speaking, swore I'd never talk in front of a group ever again. So I don't know what happened there. Like I said, your strengths find you, right? So it's really just about, I lost my train of thought here, but it's really about finding yourself and taking those talents. And then I lost my train of thought, Melissa. I was going somewhere good with all of this. I'm like, your conversation was so good. We'll go back to your success statement. It was really, really good. You gave me chills, so it was really, really good. So I want to move into some fun rapid fire questions for you. This happens to me sometimes. I'm like, I get on these great rolls, and I'm like, where was I going with that? I had something good I was going to tell you. All right. So my fun rapid fire. Are you a morning or a night person?
Night, all day long.
I was going to say, I don't even know why I asked that. I figured you're going to have to be because you're in that industry where that would be like the scene. That would be where you would be. But, you never know. Sometimes I have a surprise.
I did train myself to become a morning person because I had to be up at 8 o'clock to catch my European people. But since COVID happened,
You're like,
gone
forget it.
Being
Yeah, forget it. Take your time, right? We don't have to worry about it. What's your favorite food?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I love food. So I would say tapas. I love the concept of Spanish tapas because they're just little small plates of food. And you can get as many different...
I don't know what those are. Like, this is a new term for me, Melissa. I don't know what... Look, we eat Mexican food down here all the time, and I don't know what that is. What is that, like small plates of food, or what is that?
Yes, a tapa is a small plate of food.
Okay.
So you just get a little taste of everything.
That would be so awesome. So, Chris, I guess not. Chris is back here going, Chris is like, you never had that? No, Chris, I just eat all the chips and the salsa. What are you talking about? Look, Melissa, I love Mexican food.
I'm going to have to find you a tapas restaurant to go check out.
Wait, I know you're going to have to bring me to one of your events, and then we're going to have to do that too. We're going to have to do all this. We're going to have a date when this all passes, right? Apparently, I missed that part. I've grown up in Texas, where Mexican food, Tex-Mex is like the big thing here, but apparently I missed that part. So that's like I think I eat Mexican food every single week. I'm like, chips and salsa? Is it calling me? Oh, it's Spanish? Okay, yes. Well, that's why I don't know, Chris. See? That's why I learn something new every day. See? I've been enlightened today. All right. Melissa, if you were stuck, this is a fun question. Don't think too hard on this. It's just fun. If you were stuck on a deserted island and you got your food, you got your little small plates, whatever, what would be the one other thing you would need to have?
A book.
That's good. Any book?
Or Kindle.
A Kindle?
Yes. Then you have multiple books.
Yeah. So you like to read.
The same book over and over and over. I love to read.
Do you read it like a lot? I mean, like pretty much every day? Or?
I actually, these last 9 months, yes, I've read about 12 books. So
you want to know?
It has been a lot lately.
That is so awesome because one of the guys that was on this show was he's a John Maxwell coach. And we were talking about reading because that was one of the things that when I was going through like this whole like personal development journey, that was like one of the very first things I picked up doing because I was not a reader. I didn't really like reading books. I'm like one of those people that would take a magazine and flip backwards. Like I'd go the opposite direction and I scan everything. Like I'm just like, so I was sharing with him that reading was like one of the very first things I picked up, and it basically changed my life. It was one of the biggest decisions I made because it allowed me to start thinking a little bit differently. It started opening my mind. And John Maxwell, we talked about that because one of his things he says is that if you read 12 books in a year, your life will never be the same. And right. So that just made me think of that when you said that. I'm sure your life has not been the same because you can't read and it stay the same, right? So I'm a big believer. I believe in reading. It's a cool thing. All right, and if you could be any character or superhero for a day, what would you pick?
So there's this movie, Happy Feet.
I know Happy Feet.
The main character, Mumbles, is an outcast, but he has so much self-love and just will go and tap dance his little heart away and knows that he's good just the way he is, despite other people not necessarily accepting him. So I really appreciate that element of, not caring about what other people think and just knowing that you can be your own. I know I had mentioned with you, I also love Tigger, because there's a line in the Tigger song, the most wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one.
Yes.
And, it's nice when people embrace their uniqueness and just their distinctive qualities that make them them.
Yeah, no, that's so great. Chris put his arm up in the back, but it's so funny that you even brought that up because I totally forgot you and I had talked about the Tigger, and I brought that randomly up the other day in a conversation. I was talking about the Tigger things. So, and I'm like, Tigger's so great. Like we're talking about Winnie the Pooh. And I was like, you don't want to be like Eeyore, because Eeyore is always sad. Tigger is a great character. He's got a lot of energy, right? With the dog, Chris is back there doing the Tigger for us. So, Melissa, if our audience wanted to learn a little bit more about you and your company, where do we send them?
So my website is www.armige.com, which is ARMIGE. All of the artists have featured pages on there, so there's a ton of music to check out, which is what I would really love people to look at.
That's awesome.
And just be exposed to something that they might have never heard before.
Yeah. What we'll do is when this goes out too, we'll make sure that we get all your contact information and tag you where appropriate too, so that you can share it or whatever. And if they need to check it out, they'll have a little background on you on the podcast. So this has been so awesome. I'm so glad you got to get on here. And I'm glad that we got to connect actually face to face versus the telephone. This is always makes it fun. I know it's not in person, but it's almost kind of like being in person. So, and I wish you much success. Like I said, I'm thinking of you. I hope that we get past this mess here soon so that you can kind of move back and get to do what you love doing. And sounds like you're doing okay and surviving over there, and enjoy that cute pit bull back there that I'll have to catch you on Facebook so I can see some pictures of your dogs. So it's awesome.
Sure, they're up there.
Awesome. All right. And to our listeners, of course, we do want to say to you, if you love our podcast, be sure you check us out on Facebook and iTunes. Give us a rating. We're also on iHeart and Amazon. And then hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And with that, I want to leave you guys with a couple final thoughts. By being the best you can be, the most skillful in your endeavor, and by loving yourself, your life, and what you do with it, you'll happily begin every new day with a spring in your step. And that is by Ross Wilson, The Happy Agent. I'm assuming that's a book. It sounds kind of fun. I like the happy agent part. And the last thing I want to leave you with is, in order to have success, you must start. And that start begins with the decision. So you guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We'll see you next time.